Oh, Shalom Yocheved. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, everything's good.
Yofti, Baruch Hashem. Shalom Avadia, how are you?
Fine, nice to see you.
Yes, very nice to see the two of you.
Happy to hear your teachings, your lectures.
Ah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Yocheved, you say you... Yes?
it's a pleasure and enrichment for me to listen to the teachings.
Thank you. I'm always happy to see the two of you in class. It's always nice for
Thank
me.
you.
And you should both feel comfortable just to speak up also. It's okay. Just because you're on Zoom doesn't mean you're not in class. You are in class. You must...
I try to realize that I'm really with you, but yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard. I know. But
Yeah.
but so far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to hear. Happy to hear you participate.
We are still galutniks. Have you heard that expression?
Yes.
But it's with Rebetzin's permission that Ovadia's also joining, so he doesn't show up so that people don't see him.
I mustn't be in the center of the screen.
Okay. So this is actually being recorded already because as soon as I turn on the Zoom, the recording starts. Okay.
Okay. So
Everyone got to see your smiles.
from Galut.
Yes, perhaps they will edit. I don't know if they edit. They don't. I don't know what they do. They edit. Yes. So you'll probably be edited out, so you don't have to worry.
Okay.
We're gonna start in a minute. Okay, so we're gonna be starting in 1 minute. Let me see where everybody is.
I'll text them.
Ah, yes. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're in Shoftim, right? Perek Vav. Shoftim, Perek Vav. Shoftim, Perek Vav. We're talking about Gidon. It's a long chapter. Okay. Let's see where everyone is. Okay, we're starting. Okay. If it's here, it's here. Okay. So last week, yes, you with me? Have you got a book? You need a book.
No.
Tanakh. What are those green ones? Okay.
I was not here last week.
Okay. So beside, so you get a bit of a review, not a preview, a review. Okay. Last week we started talking about a new judge. We started speaking about Gidon. We haven't actually mentioned Gidon yet. We're going to mention Gidon today, but we haven't yet reached him. We spoke about the introduction to Gidon. If you see in Perek Vav, you see that the first 10 verses of the chapter
Where are we? Sorry?
Sefer Shoftim, the book of Judges, chapter 6. Okay, Morah was Morah was 4 and 5, chapters 4 and 5. So we are now in chapter 6, the next. And if you just want to look visually, you can see Shirat Vorah. Do you remember we spoke about it looking like a song? So it's right after that finishes. So what book are you? Look at the top of the page. What book are you in?
Shoftim.
You're in Shoftim. Okay. Look, here's 6 here. You see, is the end of Torah.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're here. So if you take a look, the first paragraph, the first 10 verses are actually an introduction. Okay, are actually an introduction to the story. And what's very interesting is that, do you remember we looked at the chart, that we made a chart that we have for each judge, like what they did, what happened to them, right? So we saw that the first verses follow exactly what we're expecting. It starts with, take a look at the first verse. What's the first thing that happens?
They did something wrong.
Yeah, they sinned.
They sinned.
And then?
And then God gave them a punishment.
Yeah, so let's just write this on the board for a moment. Okay, so we have, just got all these wires here. 1 minute. This, put over here. Okay, so this is our magic cycle, right? So what's the first stage? Always is sin, right? And the second stage?
They get punished.
Punishment. And what's the punishment always?
What is the punishment?
Yeah, it's always the same punishment. What's the punishment? Well, what's the punishment here? If it's always the same punishment, so you can look over here and you'll have the answer.
Hashem gave them into the hand of
The
Midian.
other.
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that Hashem put them in the hands of the Midianim, the Midianites, right? Hashem brings our enemies. We have an enemy, right? I'm going to erase this word. E-N-E, right? Did I spell this correctly?
Yeah.
Enemies? Okay. So the first stage is a punishment, is the sin. Then Hashem sends a punishment. It's amazing. I stand here, and when I talk, I hear the guitar reverberate.
Really?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I wonder if I spoke in different tones. It sounds different. Unbelievable. You should try playing your guitar like this. The guitar is hanging.
Can I see?
And yes, look, come stand here. Okay, can you hear? Can you hear the guitar? Wait, speak.
Not really.
You don't hear that?
No.
Listen.
It starts playing.
Yes, you hear a little bit. You hear the vibes. It's mamash interesting. We just discovered a new way to play the guitar. You don't have to touch it. You just speak, and the guitar responds. You can hear the guitar playing. Okay.
It's like ever so slightly.
It's very light. It's very gentle.
Wow.
But if you change your tone, the guitar also sounds different.
Wow.
It's amazing. Okay, beseda. So we're going back to the book of Judges. Okay, so we have sin, punishment. The punishment is always the same in the book of Kings, book of Judges. It's the enemies coming against Am Yisrael. In other words, if we remember the fact that we came into the land in order to keep the Torah and live a life of holiness, when we abandon that task, we immediately experience this feeling of how we jeopardize our right to be here. Right? The two things are connected. It's not two different things. Okay? So what happens afterwards? What's the next stage?
They cry out.
Right? They cry out. They cry out. What happens next?
Someone gets sent to help them.
Yes, Hashem sends a judge.
I would be very frustrated if I was a Hashem.
Yeah. You guys are like naughty children,
Like,
really.
you
You just don't listen.
We're very difficult customers, yes.
like, they just got, like, they literally were, it's crazy. Like, they were just in the house tonight.
It's but there's something there about the nature of humanity. We see it when we look around. We see it that we sometimes experience something, and then we go ahead and we do something which doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I don't know, like there's something doesn't fit with your system. Like you eat something that's not good for you, not nice for you. I don't know, nuts. I don't know, soy. I don't know, something. And then you're at an event and it looks so nice, and you eat it even despite the fact you're gonna have a stomach ache. Say, "Tov, lo nora, I'll do it anyways." I'll we're not just.
We're also like we have common like most people think that humans are very like they're people of common sense. But if you think about it, like if you see an animal, they have a lot more common sense than humans.
So what you're saying is very interesting, because in the models, the economic models that existed, right, of how in other words, when people build the economy, right, and they make plans, this is how much this is going to be in them, this is going to be, we're going to raise taxes, lower taxes, this is all based on different economic models. And those economic models were always based on the premise that people act in a logical way. That was, but a few years ago, an Israeli got a Nobel Prize for proving that people don't act logically. I mean, you think you would be able to work that out on our own, right? But
won a prize for proving
for proving
Yeah,
it's a game theory. It's a game theory model, right? That just shows that the assumption that people are going to do what makes sense, it's not based on anything, and people habitually do not do the things that make logical sense. They are motivated by other reasons. People are motivated by gava, by pride, by desires, by fear. Right? It's not always things. By spiritual aspirations, right? Not only negative things, but also positive things. But the people do things that don't make sense, right? Like this kid in Australia, he was in a boat with his family, his mother and two younger siblings, and the boat got swept away in the storm. And he swam for 14 hours to get to shore to tell the people to come and save his family because they were drifting off, they had no engine, whatever. Now that doesn't make any sense. You don't jump into the water and swim for 14 hours when you're a 13-year-old kid. You don't do that. But his decision wasn't based on logic. It was based on a sense of loyalty and caring for his family. So, I mean, that's an example of people not doing things based on logic. Right? Baruch Hashem, he arrived safely and saved his family.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. But anyways, so we're not different than them, is what I'm trying to say. But it's good to know that. In other words, it's important for us to be aware of the fact that it's easy to criticize someone else. It's easy to stand and say, look at the Jewish people. What? Not you, I'm not saying you. I'm saying, but Gadol, we're sitting and we're learning and we're saying, didn't they get it? Didn't they get it? You know, why are they acting? And it's like a feeling like this. And the ability to stop and say, wait, I'm not really so different. I also do things that don't make any sense. And sometimes that's why these stories are here. That's why these stories were included in the Tanakh. So we would be able to sort of see a mirror to our faces, right? To understand this is the outcome. This is what they did, and this is the outcome. And we have to watch ourselves so the same thing doesn't happen to us.
There's a lot of pasuks that are speaking about the weird and deceitful ways that the women have deceived the men in a sexual way to carry on a lineage or to make which I
We
find.
spoke about yesterday.
Yes.
Are you speaking about Ruth to a certain extent and Tamar and
Yeah, the wife of Ishai.
Nitzevet?
Nitzevet.
That's a very difficult midrash. Okay, but leaving out that
Still,
midrash.
I mean,
But even we have like in the Torah, there's a story of Ruth. That's in the Nevi'im, in the Ketuvim. We got Ruth, and although she isn't
it's all
deceitful, but
deceit.
she's
It's all like,
um.
I'm gonna carry on the lineage. I have to get pregnant by this man, so I'm gonna do this and this sneaky. It's like,
No, but wait,
why?
but let's think for a moment about the three examples we've got. Okay,
Yeah.
we're looking at Yehuda, about Tamar, who was Yehuda's daughter-in-law.
Mhm.
We're looking for a moment at Ruth to a certain extent. We're looking perhaps at the daughters of Lot,
Yeah.
and let's say maybe looking at Nitzevet
Rachel
and Rachel and Leah. Okay, so Rachel and Leah is not the same thing because that wasn't their choice. Their father, he orchestrated it.
Yes, but then the one was under the bed.
That's a midrash. In other words, a midrash has to be read carefully.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm leaving that for a moment. But looking at just what's in the stories that are in the Torah itself, right? Presented the way the Torah wants us to understand them.
Okay.
So, both in the story of Tamar, she's not sneaking on him something that is her own idea. In other words, according to the law, he was obligated. He was required to give her the son. In other words, there's a halakha, not even before the giving of the Torah, it was very widely held among the people, is that if a son dies without any children, that it's the responsibility of the sibling or of the father, this isn't in the Torah, but this is the way it was held in those days, to marry the woman and look after her. And there's no such thing as a woman living on her own in a tent. That doesn't work that way. You can't survive without a family around you in the ancient times. And you can't have your refrigerator where you go shopping once a week. If you want bread, you have to plow the field, you have to grind any person cannot survive on their own. A person has to survive within a community, within a family. And a woman who gets married and then loses her husband is left without anything. She cannot. It's not possible to survive. Not even talking if it's safe or not safe, just saying this on a technical level. And therefore, it's the responsibility of the family to look after her. And somebody there is going to marry her and make her a home. So she can have children, so she can have someone to look after when she's old, feed her, that is the responsibility. And he knows that it's his responsibility. And he tells her, just wait in your father's house until Shelah grows older. He's the youngest son. And he doesn't intend to give Shelah to her. So Shelah, that's the youngest son.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And he has no intention of giving Shelah. He's got no intention because the son grew older and he didn't say, okay, he's ready to be married, come, let me fulfill my obligation to you. He just sort of pushed her out of his sight and he's going on with his life. He's going on with his life. He's going to the party and he's going to sleep around, he's doing whatever, that's wrong. He is going against his obligations. And what she is doing is she's putting him in a situation where he's forced to fulfill his obligation. In other words, she's not thinking, well, I really want to have a kid No, he is obligated. And she puts him in a situation where his obligation will be fulfilled. And what's amazing with Yehuda is that when she puts him on the spot, he says, you're right. He doesn't say, no, how are you doing such a thing? He doesn't. He says, Tzadka mimeni. She was right. I behaved incorrectly. She is right. I should have given her, set her up with my son, given her in marriage, right? Or he could also have married her, not in Yadut, but in the way they did things then. He also could have done that, right? And he didn't, and he recognized that he was wrong. So it's not to say that she's it's not true. He was the one that was not doing what was right. Okay? That's if we look at the story of...
Just because someone's not acting proper.
But she was left hanging. She can't marry someone else. The woman who's waiting...
So talk to him.
Well, he's not
Yeah,
listening.
They marry them off at like 14, so she's only used to that family. Is that what you mean?
I don't know. No, you're not. If somebody is waiting to be married, in other words, that the family has an obligation to marry her, is that she cannot marry someone else. So he has made her into a widow. She can't marry. She's like an almanah because she's on her own, but she also can't marry anyone. So she's forever going to be on her own. They have to either marry her or do chalitza or let her go. There's an act of it's called chalitza, where the person proclaims that I refuse to fulfill my obligation to you, and they pull off his shoe, and they call him Bet Chalut. They speak to him like, look, like what kind of a person you are that you're not fulfilling your obligation, right? And spit at him, right? But she can be free. In other words, he has to make a choice.
Yeah.
He's sitting there. Lo naim li, someone's going to say Bet Chalut Sanal and spit at me. Lo naim li, to come out. Ki'ilu, I don't care about my daughter-in-law, but I also don't want my son to marry him. So I'll just pretend it's not happening. I'm sending her back to her father's house, where she can't stay. He's gonna die at some point. It's not her place. It doesn't belong there anymore. And I'll just pretend it's not happening. And she's like, you can't do that. You make a choice. You have to act. And she forces him to act. So it's like a slightly more complicated story.
Yeah, but
And then you have a thought, right? Where he also has an obligation to act. Here too, Naomi is a widow, and there is an obligation on the family to redeem to redeem her and the children, and they're not doing it. They're ignoring it because lo naim lehem, she's a this, she's a that. They got all the reasons, whatever. Lo mishaneh. They're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay, but there's no polygamy nowadays. So what will happen if, say, your husband's brother, like example?
No, we have
husband, brother, God forbid. But
no. We have these situations do arise when somebody dies young, and then there's chalitza. You go to Bet Din and there's chalitza. They still do it today.
no one actually marries their brother-in-law.
Today we don't do that.
Yeah.
Today we don't do that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you still have the idea of having an obligation to look after someone who's married into your family. That still exists. And if you want to forgo it, so it has to be done officially. Right? You have to mamash say, I am letting you go and I'm not assuming responsibility, even though I should. We're not so used to this idea of having responsibility because for us, marriage, we only look at it as like a love thing. You love each other, you get married, you have a family, right? But we leave out the fact that
Because we can
that
survive as single people nowadays.
we can survive much easier as single people, although, people are lonely. I see people that are older, on their own, have no children, have no family. You have Sukkot on your own, Shavuos on your own, every Shabbos you're on your own. You come home to your house, it's empty. Not a pashut. You're sick, somebody's sick. Who's going to help you? Who's going to look out for you? Who's going to go make you chicken soup?
But some people.
No, beseder. I'm just
like,
saying that even
some people are supposed with being by themselves, and they rather.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we're talking about a society where there's an understanding that there's a responsibility, that a family is responsible to the members of the family, and when you marry someone, you become responsible for them, and it's a bond that is a very strong bond. This bond of responsibility, and today, we live a different type of life, and we all have washing machines and vacuum cleaners, and in other words, our ability to survive on our own is very different. We can manage. Technically, you can manage usually, right? Not even though it's very expensive, and some people I see are mamash bekoshi managing to make ends meet. But people can make that choice. But here you've got a person, she didn't make that choice. Her husband died. The family's supposed to be responsible, and they're not assuming the responsibility they have.
Okay, but going back to what I was thinking of David and
Nisevet.
Now, they were separated for 3 years, and she sneaked into his room at night.
Mm-hmm.
But He thought
I don't
he was
know.
sleeping
Listen.
with the maid, so he
Listen,
didn't-
I'm familiar with this midrash. It's a very difficult midrash, and I was thinking to myself afterwards about it. Very hard for me to understand the midrash.
yeah.
But I'm also, when I look at a midrash is not a midrash. Sometimes we look at a midrash like it's a missing chapter of the story to be read as as you see it. That's what happened. That's not always a midrash is. A midrash is uses story form in order to give over an idea. And often you have a midrash. The midrash is not supposed to be understood literally, but figuratively. I'm trying to think of an example. Like I've given you this, I think I've given this example here before, and I'll just give it again because I think it's such a beautiful example. We have in Chumash Shmot, we have the description of Moshe is put in a basket on the Nile River, and the Paro's daughter is sees him. And then it says, "Vatishlach et amata v'tikacheu." She sent her amma, and the amma took the basket and brought the basket to the Bat Parot to see. Think 1 second. So amma is.
But I heard like that she's.
Shniya, rega. Shniya, I'm in the middle of trying to say that. Shniya, I'm in the middle. That's what it says in the pasuk. Vatishlach et amata.
Okay.
The word amma has two meanings. The one meaning is this part. This is an amma, right? This is the amma, the finger of the amma, and this is the amma. We use it as measurement, right? But it is an amma because we measure with it. And the other meaning for the word amma is a handmaid, like a servant, right? Because she's like your extra hand, right? That like makes sense. My handmaid, right? That's why she's also called a handmaid in English, because she's a maid, like an extra hand, right? So Rashi explained, Tishlachet amata, she sent her servant. That's pshat, like a very pshat, because that's what queens do, right? You send your servant to do things for you. You're not going to get up, right? Someone's going to do it for you, right? And then also brings the midrash, and he says that she sent her arm, and her arm became very, very, very long, and she reached it. And you ask yourself, why did Rashi have to bring that midrash? Because first of all, that she sent the handmaid makes absolute sense. He could also just say that she reached out and took it. Why say that her arm extended? In other words, the story works
like Rubber Girl.
Like Rubber Girl. You don't need to be Rubber Girl. She could have just taken another step over and reached. In other words, do you understand what I'm saying? Like this midrash is like, it's like a very strange midrash. Does it mean, be'emet, that her hand became like that? The answer is probably that no. That what the midrash is coming to say is that when you think about someone to extend your reach, what does it mean when we say in English to extend your reach?
Like really straight.
Go beyond what is logically possible. And I'll stop and think a moment about this story, right? Paro made a decree to kill all the boys, right? And here we have a scenario where we already know the end of the story, right? Paro's daughter is going to save a child, a boy, a Jewish boy, right? He did that because he was scared that one of the male boys would be the one that would redeem the Jewish people, right? She saves a boy. She raises him in the palace.
Under his nose.
And like literally in the room with him.
What did he think? That this random baby appeared?
In the room with him. We have stories of him sitting on Paro's lap. Nervous about him, right? We have is he going to get me into trouble or not? We have the stories, right? But he raises him in Paro's house, and he gets an education like a prince, right? He's raised like everyone else. You see, when he goes out, he sees himself as like, he can decide what's going to happen. Kill somebody, smack somebody, try and do whatever. And when you stop and you look back at what Paro's daughter did, she overextended her reach. This was something, the way she raised Moshe and what she did was beyond her reach, but she did it.
Against her father's wishes, actually.
It was against her father's wishes. It was against a political, properly correct of the time. It was against everything. So when the Midrash says Nishtabeva yada, that she pulled her hand beyond, that is exactly what happened. Not that physically her arm became 20 centimeters longer or a meter longer, but her actions, what she did was to go beyond any possible logical measure we would expect from her. So what I'm saying is, when we read this Midrash, when you read it figuratively, it gives us so much depth and insight into what happened that day on the Nile. It's not stam, she saw this cute little baby and she took the baby and now he's going to raise him at home. But that's not really the story. The story is how she did something which defied all logic and defied all political possibility. And that is Nishtar Bevayada. Her arm became longer than what it was expected to become. So I'm giving this as an example that a Midrash is coming to tell us something. And the way it's told is to give over a message. If we just read that her arm became very long, so we go say, very cute, like a rubber lady. But then we've missed the Midrash. We've missed the message. And not only that, we feel that it's like
my original question.
no. But it also makes us feel the Midrash is a little bit silly, because what we really think that she has a rubber hand, kilo. In other words, when we read it literally, we not only lose the purpose of the Midrash, but end up treating it with disrespect. Now I'm saying there's a story here about Nitzevet, right? I haven't seen the Midrash in writing. Okay, everything in the play went through an editing. You know how we see it, how we're going to present it, right? It's not the exact words of the Midrash. Okay. Now, I think that Midrash probably needs to be read also figuratively. There's something going on. They're trying to talk about an idea. Did he really? I don't know. No, but that's a Midrash. It's not in the it's not in the Psukim.
Okay.
It's not in the Psukim.
But even when we learn Torah, a lot of what we learn, at least as a child, most of the child are midrashim.
So that's a problem.
Yeah,
It's a problem because
I agree. I literally said that.
it's a problem for two reasons. It's a problem for one reason is because how many people are spend hours looking for the scene where Vashti, not Vashti, Haman's wife, Zeresh, where Zeresh throws the bucket of garbage water over her husband.
Oh, I haven't
Right.
seen that yet.
Nachon, you haven't seen it yet because it's not in the Megillah. It's a Midrash.
Oh.
But if people learn it as children, they don't know what's in the Torah and what's in the Midrash.
Oh, so they just assume that it's
They just assume. No. I don't know. No, I'm just saying that I'm giving it as an example that people don't know what it says in the Torah and what's not in the Torah, what's in Midrash and what's not in Midrash, which is a problem. You need to know what it says in the Torah. You need to know what's not in the Torah, right? Afterwards, you can learn the Midrash and you say, oh, this is a Midrash. And then you learn, and the other problem is, which is connected to that, is a Midrashim or Midrashim. They have to be read like a Midrash. Not read literally. Like you don't read poetry literally, right? My heart is bound in barbed wire. That no one's heart is bound in barbed wire, but they're saying, "I feel like what."
Why is it taught like that? Like no one thought about this before they taught all these things.
That's why it's also
Like it's hard to go back now, you know. Like
Listen, you
No, really, because it's generations. And that's how I learned. And of course, they say like, yeah, you know, it's a midrash. But when I'm a kid, I know what that means. No. I said, oh, it's probably like Rashi, like an explanation or whatever.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm not arguing with you. My children went to a school where they were very upset about this idea. And when they learned without any midrashim. They just learned straight Torah. First time around, just learned straight what it says. Just to know what it says. Okay. Afterwards, okay, l'tov v'lerah, there's pluses and minuses in that system as well. But nachon, it's not so simple. And that's the main problem is when people... Yeah. People sometimes learn until they're like 12 or 13. After they have a bar mitzvah, they leave school. And then all the knowledge they have is the knowledge that they learned as children. And they don't have a chance for the knowledge to mature, for the level of knowledge, for the understanding to mature, right? And to understand, to differentiate between a midrash and not a midrash and all different things. And then you come and learn other things, and your people's view of the Torah and Yahadut is like the way you look at a child, and then it's demeaned. Like, oh, no, it's not really serious, it's not really intellectual, right? Because that's the only thing they've got, is what they learned as children. So all these things are connected, nachon, right? And I'm welcoming you all to, when you raise your children, please God, to try and deal with this so you don't have the same problems, right?
Yeah. But Bella said please excuse her if she's still not feeling well.
Okay. So that was off topic.
Yes.
But I think it's very, very important. Just to make you feel a little bit better, the Rambam, Maimonides, has a whole section where he discusses this issue. How should we treat Midrashim? And he says, if you look at the people at large, there are three types of people. They're the people that believe everything literally. And he says, they're wrong. That you can't, it's not meant to be read like that. Right? His nose was in the air. What? His nose was in the air? No. The same way we understand it in language, with figurative speech to describe ideas. That's the Midrash. You got to read Midrash like that. So you have people that say that nothing is right. Nothing in the Midrash is right. Oh, Midrash. Okay. Midrash, right? He says, no, that's also not right.
Are you saying that it's a metaphor? Everything's a metaphor?
I'm not saying that everything is a metaphor. I am saying that when you read Midrash, you have to be aware of the fact that the Midrash uses metaphoric language very, very often. And when you have a story that's very strange, very hard to understand, one must always keep in mind that the Midrash may be speaking metaphorically. Sometimes it's very clear that it's metaphoric, right? That it says mashal, right? This is a metaphor. And then you know you're about to have a metaphor. But not always, right? The description of Avraham going to the Akedah. And the Midrash comes in and describes how as he's going, all of a sudden, a river comes, an unexpected flash flood comes, and he covers him up completely. And then he wades through with just his head going out. And then something else happens, and he again has to overcome. And you ask yourself, is this a metaphoric description of the emotional and spiritual turmoil that he is going through as he is going to do the Akedah? In other words, the Torah doesn't bring that in. But the Midrash fills in that difficulty, right? Intellectually, how do you argue with it? Emotionally, what are you doing? And that is what the Midrash is doing, using these metaphors of water, etc. We have to sit and learn the Midrash properly. But it doesn't mean that Be'emet, there was a flash flood. No. It means a flash flood of emotion. I don't know, right? But that is the language of the Midrash. The Midrash is very, very deep. To say that it's just telling me stories that I didn't know makes it very shallow. It takes away from the depth of the Midrash. Okay? And what the Rambam says is that when you learn Midrash, you have to understand. Some of it has to be read metaphorically, some of it not metaphorically, some of it you have to take the way it says, some of it not. You have to know it's a chokhmah. It's a chokhmah how to read Midrash. And if you don't have that chokhmah and you either accept everything like literally or reject everything literally, you've missed it out. Yeah, no, but what happens is we're often left, and then, but nobody spoke with us about the Midrash is really, it's adult reading. Not adult reading as in it's like 18 plus kind of a thing. It's adult reading because you have to have the ability for abstract thought. You have to be able to look at something symbolically, because that's what the Midrash is doing. So when you tell a Midrash to a child, you have to be careful which Midrashim you choose to tell, so that they, aren't trapped, with like half-baked ideas kind of a thing, right? And then you read the Midrash, hopefully, as a child gets a bit older, you read the same midrash again, and then you say, wait a minute, but I want you to understand that there's a metaphorical significance here that's going on in this story, right? And then you analyze it again. The same when you read Chumash. You learn Chumash as a child, you learn Chumash as somebody older. It's different type of a learning that goes on. You have a different understanding, a different type of depth. Okay.
Thank you.
We're leaving that now. But I think it's a very, very important discussion to have had.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, back to Judges. Okay, so we're looking at the cycle. So we had the first is sin. Second is the punishment in the form of enemies. Third, we have they cry out. Hashem sends a judge. Then sometimes we have that he judges them. I'm putting this in parentheses. These are parentheses?
Yeah.
Parentheses. Because you'll see it's going to disappear soon. Right? And then we have what happens next? Redemption. Right? This is our favorite part. And then what's our least favorite part?
Punishment.
They go back to sin.
Okay? This is our cycle. This is our cycle. This is the cycle on which the book is structured. And all our stories, all the big stories, not the short liner ones, are all going to be constructed around this cycle. So as we started our chapter, right? So take a look again at Pasuk Aleph, right? So just read out, let's mark off the components as we get to them, right? The first, how does the pasuk start?
They're telling us that they've sinned.
They sinned, so we have sin, right? Okay. What's the next thing that happened?
Punishment.
We have how's the punishment?
Midians.
The Midianites are coming. Excellent. Okay. What happens next?
They started building caves in the mountains to hide.
Wait. Just before that. Before that. Take a look at verse 7.
Okay.
You're in the wrong book.
Judges.
But chapter 7. Chapter 6. Chapter 6.
Oh, sorry.
What happens in verse 7 of chapter 6?
Okay. Oh, and it's not. The children of Israel cried out to Hashem concerning Midian. Okay.
But maybe it's 6. It's 6. Take a look at 6. Sorry.
Midian.
Israel was crying out to Hashem.
They cried out. Thank you. That's our next thing, right? So far we're fine. We're on track with our cycle. Sin, punishment, cry out. What's supposed to happen now?
Judge.
What's supposed to happen?
Forgiveness.
A judge. We're supposed to get a judge. What happens instead in the chapter?
They get a prophet.
Hashem sends a prophet. Oi, what happened to our cycle? What happened to our cycle? Right, all of a sudden here, before the judge, we get it. Okay, so let's see, what's this prophet going to do? What does the prophet do?
Take them out of their
I don't understand.
redeems them.
No, the prophet doesn't redeem them.
On this specific time.
This specific time, what happens with the prophet?
Well, the prophet reminds them what Hashem did for them, how he saved them out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, how he saved them out of Mitzrayim. Gave them their land.
Yes, and the last pasuk, the last few words in the verse.
That Hashem pushed away those who
Yes, the enemies.
the enemies,
And
those who oppressed them. And gave them back their land.
And
You shall not fear the gods.
the last words.
You did not heed my
You
voice.
did not heed my voice. Okay, I just want the whole story. So, Yocheved, you're right. In other words, what happens with this prophet? Instead of coming and say, okay, folks, who's coming to war with me? He stands there and says, folks,
You didn't listen to
you didn't, there's a covenant. I took you out of Egypt. I gave you the Torah. I brought you to Israel. I cleaned out this land for you. I gave you this place to live. And you're not listening. Kilo Chevre, you don't realize something's going on here? Right? It's called to rebuke. He is rebuking them because they did not do what they needed to. Notice that we didn't have rebuke in the original cycle. But now there's a feeling that you got to sort of spell it out to the people. Like, this isn't the first time we're having the cycle, right? We're already in chapter 6, right? So it's not the first time that they've sinned, punishment, right? So he's saying, let me spell it out to you. Why did this happen? Because you sinned. Now, what should happen now? What should happen?
Redemption. War.
People should apologize to Hashem.
Just
Sorry for not
apologize?
listening.
Just saying sorry?
No, they should
They should do tshuva. They should do tshuva because everything happened because of the sin. Right? It's not just that this is like the first component of the cycle. This is the prime mover of the cycle, is the sin. If you remove the sin, there's no punishment, there's no crying out, right? Everybody just stays with redemption. So if they want to be redeemed, right, it's all very nice to go back to war and to win the war, right? War is a terrible thing. I don't have to tell you that, right? Even if you win the war, it's a terrible thing, right? Terrible to go to war. Terrible. The country gets ravished. People are terrible thing of war, right? It's like if you're already going to have a war, you might as well win it, right? But to have a war as a first option, who wants a war? So here we are. The way to deal with this, the prophet is telling them, is get rid of the sin. Don't come to me all the time and say, oh, no, you change the way you behave, and then everything will be okay. Right? We don't have to take that option of going to war. Okay, all of you people, you're all standing here. You're listening to the prophet. What are you going to do now?
Yeah. Admits,
You listen, right? Or no, like you're in these rallies, these big political rallies, and you have these charismatic speakers saying, and yes we can, or whatever they happen to be saying. What does the crowd do?
Yeah.
Yay, we with you, raise their hand, whatever they happen to do. What happened here after this rally? What's the response to the prophet's call? We'll take a look. If you don't look, you won't know. Verse 11.
Assume sacrifice. Is it under tree? But we read that about the wine piece. Hashem is with you.
You're ready in another story.
Oh.
No, it's okay. I'm just yes.
11.
Nachon. Yes. So wait. So it finished. The prophet finishes speaking at the end of verse 10, right? So we're looking at verse 11 to see the response. What's the response?
Hashem responds.
There's no response. There's no response. You don't hear. You suggested. I'm sure there'll be sacrifices. No sacrifices. Nobody listened. Nobody responded. Did they hear him? In other words, hear him as in like hearing, right? Not just that.
That they heard his voice.
No, but did they hear him as in like listen, like did it register? I think that is the way we say it today. Did it register? Doesn't feel like that. That's a terrible thing. In other words, is it going to help going on in this cycle, sending the judge? Is this going to change what's happening? They'll be redeemed now. But we know that the next cycle is just around the corner. Because if they're not willing to take or able or understanding, take responsibility for the way they're behaving and to change the way they behave, they're doomed to go back into the cycle again and again. This is a very, very pessimistic moment in the story. Okay, folks, I'm giving you the opportunity to be God. What would you do?
Kill them all.
No. Please don't listen to that advice. Let's.
Yeah, like it's frustrating. Imagine you do all this. You literally saw God like.
Listen. Any koch is not an option here because God runs the world, and we're not giving up because you have to have faith. The people can improve, and you'll see that even we as people see the world and the here and now. Sometimes we're able to understand how processes that things can get better, things can improve. But a regular person that doesn't have experience in a field can really become very, very pessimistic about the future, right? You're in the hospital and somebody that's injured comes in and they're in a coma for a week and you're not sure if they're ever going to get up, they're going to be able to walk, if they're able to talk, if there's any part of the brain that's still working. And you have the medical team in the hospital, they have hope. And you look at them, like, what are we talking about over here? And you see that the medical team works to stabilize the blood pressure, to stabilize the infection, all these medical things, set the bones, set the muscles, fix the things, get rid of the sharp nail, whatever needs to be done. And then you have the person is finally woken up, and you see they're coherent. Memory is shot, right? But they're able to nod a little bit or blink their eyes or whatever. And then the physiotherapists start working. You think to themselves, you got nothing better to do? And they work with this person and they work with them. And after a few weeks, they're sitting up in bed and they're starting to speak and they start to walk and they get back to being a human being. And if you would ask me looking at the person, I would say, but the doctors, they know the yesh sikui, that there's hope. And the physiotherapists know that if you work, you can reawaken the system, you can make the nerves start working again, you can strengthen the signals that go between the brain and the nerve and the muscle, right? And they work on this person and they bring them back to life. Literally, not just that they're sitting there, but they're mamash able to think. And
it's a beautiful example to counter that, but I think that the base of that doesn't work as like a counter of what she said, because tachlis, if we would have that option of just make a reset and everybody's in a coma and then they need to unlearn all the stupid stuff that they learn and we can reteach them how to be amazing. Okay, don't kill them, reset them. But your example is literally proposing that a reset,
no,
everything.
I wasn't.
Learning is coming. The person from the coma doesn't really have a choice of learning or not, of restarting up or not, because when they're waking up, they don't.
So they do have. Okay, so I'll explain better what I meant. I don't see it as a reset. It's not a reset, but I'm saying that even in situations where we feel that there is no hope, one should not believe there's not no hope.
Yeah.
Not always. People do die. I'm not living in whatever.
I'm not going to say what
right.
happened when I was in student nurse mode.
Yeah, people die. And this person has a choice if to go through physiotherapy or not, because it's very painful. It's very difficult. And there are people that choose not to, and they don't move. But the people that choose life, and they work hard and go through a tremendous amount of pain, right? But they rehabilitate their lives. Now, that's what I'm just saying is that this is something we can see, that to lose hope, that just because we are not able to see the possibilities that exist beyond our experience, right? Doesn't mean that God is not aware of those possibilities that exist. But yes, the question about restart, I think there is such an idea of restart. We all have restart. It's called Yom Kippur. And we're not going to change ourselves from being somebody new, and we're not expected to. But we can make changes in our life. We can learn to speak more respectfully to other people. That's a major restart. We can learn to take responsibility over the way we act. We can learn to take responsibility of what we eat, right? We can learn to we can make a lot of restarts in our life that completely change who we are. Nachon, we'll still have our failings, we'll still make mistakes. Beseda. God's not expecting us to be angels. But that's why God can also have an expectation of the Jewish people that they'll pull it together and realize that they're acting the wrong way. And as a nation, do tshuva. Like Nineveh, right? You think about the book of Yonah. The people of Nineveh, they did tshuva. Did they do it for real? They do it for fake? I'm leaving that question out. But they did. They changed the way they behaved. So it is a possibility.
I think that for your previous for your original question, I would lay it out on them, like people most people that go in the first place with to that place of sinning. It's not, they're not bad, it's done they forgot, they're a bit
absolutely
it's silly, it's as I would dumb it up. I would literally, if I was I would dumb it up. I would literally explain in the most simple ways what it means to do tshuva, practically, what would they need to do to actually integrate that inside of themselves once and for all, and how to practically do that on a daily basis again and again. Remind them what you need to do, how and why, and lay it out, and just really simply.
It's amazing what you're saying. It's amazing what you're saying, because that's exactly what the prophets do. That is exactly what the prophets do. Hashem sends the prophets, and the prophets try to explain to the people, do you realize that what you're doing doesn't make any sense? Do you realize that what you're doing is counterintuitive for what's good for you, right? And with lots of examples and lots of stories and lots of showing them where it's going to take and lots of examples from history, every way possible, right? And people still have the freedom of choice to accept it or not to accept it. So here we can see it's almost like the first, it's not really the first, but in this type of a scenario of the people, that there's a prophet that's coming and trying to wake them up and just tell them, folks, Yetziat Mitzrayim wasn't so long ago, right? It's not a far off thing that remembers, right? Getting the Torah is not so far ago, right? Folks, remember, we have an agreement, trying to shake people up. And there's no response. But God doesn't give up, okay? So we need more advice. What else could you do? Shake the land. Okay, so we're looking okay, so let's take a look and see what happens next, okay? So we're looking in verse 11, okay? That an angel of God shows up. You know what? Read to yourself. We are in chapter 6, verse 11. Okay, so I'll just read it out. It's easier, I think. ויבוא מלאך השם וישב תחת האלה אשר בעופרה אשר ליואש אבי העזרי וגדעון בנו חובט חיטים בגת להניס מפני מדיין. Right, you've got the English there, you can follow. Okay, so there are two people in the story, or actually three people in this pasuk. Okay, who's the first one mentioned? Maybe not exactly a person. No. Look at the first words. A malach, an angel. Okay, we've got an angel of God. Okay, that's number one. Who else do we have? Who else is mentioned? Yoash. They had the family of the Ezri and Azar. Okay, and we have another person. Exactly, Gidon, the son. Okay, with three people in this scenario. What is Gidon doing at this point in time?
He's in the wine where he's threshing wheat so that the Moabites don't see.
Right, he's in the wine press threshing wheat, so the Moabites don't catch him. Right, because that's what the Moabites do. Labuyut. They wait to see that the food is ready, then they come and they steal it. Who threshes wheat in the wine press? Doesn't make any sense. It's the wrong, scenario, physical scenario to be able to do it efficiently. But if they're not looking for him over there, so maybe be able to save the wheat and bring it home. Right? This is a reflection of the difficult political state that they're in, where you have to do crazy things in order to try and save your food to feed your family. Right? What is the angel doing?
Sitting under the elm.
He's reassuring me.
In the first verse, what's he doing?
Shem's with you.
In the first verse,
Sorry. He sat under the tree.
he's just sitting. He's not revealing himself yet. He only reveals himself later on, which is very strange. In all the other times we have an angel suddenly show up, the angel always immediately comes in order to reveal himself, and he immediately reveals himself. Here, there's like he's sitting there and he's watching, and it's almost like, will he or won't he reveal himself? Like we're waiting, almost like a feeling he's waiting for something to happen. And then in Pasuk Yud he reveals himself. Vayera elav malach Hashem. Vayomer elav Hashem mimcha gibor hechayil. I want to ask you a question. Does he look like an angel or does he look like a person?
A person.
It looks like a person. Doesn't look, no big wings and all that, halo. No, we don't have any of that stuff. Okay? And what does he tell Gideon?
He doesn't understand.
What did the angel say? Pasuk Yud Bet.
Hashem is with you.
Hashem imcha gibor achai. Now if you remember in the book of Ruth, we also have Hashem imachem. Right? Hashem is with you. It's like a greeting. Today we greet people, say shalom, shalom. Hello, hello. But another way of greeting someone is say God be with you. Or God is with you. You know, it's like a little more religious, fancy type of a greeting. But that was the greeting they used in this time. We know it because we see it also in the book of Ruth, which happens at the same time period. Right? So he greets him like that. So when somebody says hello, what do you answer?
Hi.
Hi! Nachon. Hashem imachem, imachem Hashem. I don't know if anybody here was in Bnei Akiva, right? All these, in Arabic, they're very, very alaikum assalam, or sabah al-khair, sabah al-wad, right? There's an answer. Every greeting has an answer, right? And what does he answer him? What does Gideon answer this very nice, respectful, hi, how are you?
Makes it very true. He says, why Hashem is, how can you say Hashem is with us if this is happening?
Yeah. That's what someone says, hi, how you doing? And someone says, terrible. It's all your fault. Like, in other words, he's not answering the greeting. He's attacking him verbally, yes. And he's saying, V'chi Hashem imanu? How can you say Hashem imachem? Look at me. Does this look to you like Hashem imanu, that Hashem is with us? V'lama mitzatanu kol zot? Why, if God was with us, how did all this happen? That I'm threshing wheat in the wine press. How could that be? V'yeh kol nifleotav asher sipru lanu avoteinu. I grew up, and the Midrashim, and the stories from the Tanakh, they talk about Hashem making miracles, splitting the sea, bringing a plague of lice, bringing a plague of blood. Right? I grew up in all these miracles. Slicha? What are you talking about? There's something that doesn't fit. The story is not true, or it doesn't fit my life scenario. Sorry, our life scenario as a Jewish people at this point in time. Halol, and then he goes on, and if you think that he's getting as harsh as you can, he gets even harsher, because he says, "Halol mimitzrayim elanu Hashem." Hashem took us out of Egypt. Okay, I'll take that. Vata netashanu Hashem. Hashem has deserted us. Veitnenu bekaf Midian, and placed us in the hand of Midian. Not not just that I don't know, does this God know how to do any miracles? He's clearly not with me, not with us. And not only that he's left us, not only has he left us, he's handed us over to our enemies. He's betrayed us. A very, very, very harsh, very, very harsh statement. You're the angel. What happens now? What would you do? I would take a step back and say, whoa, I wasn't expecting this cold shower, right? Here I am being nice and starting conversation, and you're attacking me. Me personally, that's not what it says here. But I'm saying me personally, if you ask me, I'd be like, whoa, my God, it's scary. I'm not expecting this. What does he answer him? He obviously did not respond the way I did.
Hashem turned to him. It's not even the angel anymore.
Oh, all of a sudden Hashem shows up. Very, very surprising. And what does he say?
Go with the strength of yours, and you shall save Israel.
Go with this kochacha, this strength, and save Israel. Can someone explain this answer to me?
That he feels that angry to make a change. Like, take that anger that you feel, take that, like, those emotions that are make you feel like frustration, that like it's not fair, injustice, whatever. Turn it into fuel. Like, go fight. Go take back what's yours. Help the people of Israel.
Okay. So he's saying take this energy and use it for something positive. Go out and fight. Now it's very interesting. Okay, first of all, I think that's fantastic advice, right? To use an energy, even if it's being used for something negative, if we're able to change that energy over to something positive, that's a very, very strong thing, right? Talking again about optimism and pessimism, right? Just because somebody is behaving in a very bad way, that doesn't mean that we can't use that in order for the person to do something good, to take that redirect the energy, right? Sometimes people do act not nicely because either they don't know how to use the energy correctly, or they feel lost, right? And they need a bit of guidance. But nevertheless, what we saw here all of a sudden is that Hashem revealed himself instead of the angel. And I think the first question we would have, perhaps, isn't it like a little bit like inappropriate to speak like this? Like, I don't know if there's like this is like in the Bible. Like, is it right to talk like this? To shout it against God? To be angry like this about God? To blame him? To accuse him of deserting the Jewish people? Like, shouldn't rather a bolt of lightning come out and strike him? Is that like a thought that you might have had, maybe?
I read of a guy who was struck 12 times by lightning.
His head must be fried.
He's alive.
I think it's rather like a sign of love. If you are able to talk like that, it means that you really have a strong connection to Hashem.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to let out all your grief and all your pain.
Yeah. Absolutely. The ability to call out against God is a sign of faith. That he does believe in God, that he does believe that there's a covenant, that he does believe that God is supposed to be looking after us, right? It shows a tremendous amount of resilience and a spiritual resilience, right? Because if a person just says, I don't know what happened, no, he believes in God, and he believes that God should be doing something different, right? And that's a very, very important thing. And if you look in the Tanakh, you see again and again that our greatest leaders argue with God and shout at God and demand of God. And that's fine, because it shows the depth of a person's faith. Avraham argues with God, and Yov argues with God, and Moshe argues with God, right? They all argue with God. You don't argue with something you don't believe in. You don't argue with something that you don't believe has the power to do things differently, right? So these are all like a proof of bemet, of a strength of their faith. Yes, I stopped you in the middle. That you started saying something. I wanted first to.
I forgot actually.
Sorry.
No.
Now, what's very interesting here, by the way, with Gidon, we're looking for what is your strength. So, bemet, I agree that one of the things of the strength is this, that he cares. That he mamash cares. And he cares mamash, right? That is a tremendous strength. Yes. Another strength is that we can see the depth of his faith in Hashem. He's cross at God because he believes in him. But we have another thing here which is very, very interesting. Here you are thrashing wheat, and someone comes up and says, Hashem imachem, right? Hashem is with you. He greeted you as a person. Does Gidon answer him as an individual?
No, he's answering like he's God.
No, does Gidon, when he speaks, does he answer as Gidon, a person that's Gidon?
He answers as the
No,
whole.
it's with us.
He answers as a whole. He answers as the voice of the people. In other words, he is living his life not as an individual. He is experiencing his life as part of the community. I think when you in Israel now, right, and you ask people manishma, and people say oi, and they say oi, and the next word isn't going to necessarily be I lost my car keys, chas v'chalila, but rather something like ma yeh im milchama, ma yeh im raftanim. Right? They answer you that what is on their mind, what is making them feel upset, is something that has to do with the nation as a whole, right? People in Israel feel very, very strongly bound in with the nation. I don't know if it's like that in America, in South Africa, and other places, right? But Israelis, Jews, feel that they are a part of the nation. And their how they feel and how they're doing and how their day is going is closely linked to how is my people doing, how is my nation surviving, what is the political atmosphere that my nation has to deal with. And those things are very, very, very significant over here. And they are what make Hashem turn to Gidon and give him this job. He cares about his people. He believes in God. And he's got a tremendous amount of energy and anger about how things are, and a desire to make things different. And these are qualities that you need for a leader. He also needs to be able to pull the people after him, but we'll see that he does. He's able to do that to a great extent, not at the soft, but to a great extent. Okay? How does Gidon respond to this? All of a sudden say, okay, go for it. You're the shofet. Go for it. How does he respond?
How you want me to do that?
How am I going to do this? Right? He starts with his excuses. What are the excuse number one?
I have nothing.
Yeah. And what? And then?
And then I'm the youngest.
I'm the youngest. I'm in a small tribe. Well, Midreshet is a big tribe, but I'm the smallest family and the youngest in my family, right? You know, you need to have this political standing, right? If I go and I stand in front of Bet Hashem and say, I protest what's happening in X, Y, and Z, people look at me and keep going. Maybe they'll look at me, right? More likely they'll look away from me. But if I am Anatoly Sharansky, I don't know if you know who that is, or if I am Bibi, right? If I'm somebody important and I stand up and I speak, people will listen. So he's saying, who's going to listen to me? I've got no standing. I'm not from an important family. I'm not in my family an important person, right? I'm not the firstborn of the first child, etc., etc. Says you're asking the wrong person, and Hashem's answer is,
Nope.
I am with you.
I am with you, and
We'll be with you.
I will strike with you.
and you will be successful. I am with you and you will be successful. Listen, that sounds pretty good to me, God telling you that. Does he accept God's reassurance? Verse 17. Does he accept God's... Yeah? Take a look. What happens in verse 17?
God came to me.
I can't keep my hands up.
In 17, he said, I have found favor in your eyes. He's asking him to perform a sign.
I need a sign. I need a sign. If I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that I'll know that you're for real. You know what? Maybe you're just some weirdo walked off the road and saying, yes, you will be successful. Right? Stam. And you don't have any, you're not God, you're not a messenger for God. You don't have any, how do I know that what you're saying is true? So what is the sign that he wants? What does he suggest? What does Gidon suggest?
Please do not depart from here until I return. I will bring my tribute and place it before you. Okay. So he's asking to take the meat and the matzah.
Yeah, wait 1 minute. I'm running home and I'm bringing you something to eat. Right? It's somebody important, right? I'm not sure how this is going to be a sign for him. But wait 1 minute. I'll be back in a second. Don't go. And he comes back with soup and meat and matzahs, which is quick cooking bread. So it took him a while to organize all this, of course. And he goes over to him and he offers him the food. And the angel says, "V'yomer elav malach Elokim, kach et habasar v'et hamatzot." Take the meat and the matzahs and put it on that stone, and pour the soup out on the stone. Right now, Veishlach malach Hashem et k'tzeh mishenet asher biyado, and he's got like a staff, and he puts. This is almost like a Harry Potter scene, right? He sends the staff to where the food is, and then what happens? Ve'gab habasar v'matzot. He touches it, and the flame comes out of the mountain, eats the meat, eats the matzah, right, that are soaking wet from the soup, which is like counterintuitive that it should be set on fire, and the angel disappears. Okay, so is this an angel or not an angel? Well, Gidon definitely thinks it's an angel. Vayar Gidon ki malach Hashem hu. Then he realized, okay, this is definitely an angel. We're not sure until now, but now he knows for sure that he's an angel. Vayomer Gidon, and his response is very interesting. Vayomer, aha, oi, right? Hashem, Elokim. Ki al ken re'ite malach Hashem panim el panim. I just saw an angel. Oh my God! What happens if you see an angel? And Hashem continues to speak with him. Vayomer lav Hashem, shalom lecha, al tira, lo tamut. You're not going to die. In other words, Gidon is sure that he's going to die now because he saw an angel. That was what people believed then. We see it afterwards just in the story of Shimshon. Shimshon says, don't worry, you're not going to die. It's okay. So in theory now, Gidon is... so then Gidon builds a Mizbeach and he calls him Hashem Shalom. And this Mizbeach is still in his plot of land. Okay, so we just met Gidon meeting the angel, being given a task to go and save the Jewish people. It's very interesting that, like Moshe, who was also given the task to save the Jewish people, Gidon also tries to weed his way out. Why me? I'm too small. I don't know. How do I know it's true? How do I know you're true? Right? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu, he doesn't jump on the opportunity to say, oh, I can be a shofet. Wow, that's really cool. No, that's not what he says. He says, I'm not sure you've made the right choice. Right? That's his response, which is a response we're familiar with from Moshe and other leaders of the Jewish people. And what we're about to see in a moment, okay, which is going to be next week, okay, is where does this meeting take Gidon? Okay, and I'm reminding you that we already have in our cycle, we've already gone out of what we expect to happen. Something else that we're not expecting to happen is going to happen now. Something not in the cycle, right? And we're going to have to try and understand in what way is that action connected perhaps to the rebuke that they had from the prophet that nobody listened to, right? And try to understand a little bit how this cycle is different than the other cycles we had until now. Okay? So Shabbat Shalom everybody. B'sorot tovot. And we should all always have the faith in ourselves to make the changes that we need in order to continue to grow and not to give up on ourselves, even when things seem bleak. If there's life, there's hope. Besimcha. Litot, Shabbat Shalom. Bye.